You let me know when you're ready. Hey guys, we're going to get started.
Okay, we're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Stacy Hendler-Ross. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. Today we're going to give you an update on a notification we received last night from our largest union, the Amalgamated Transit Union, which represents 1,500 VTA employees, of their intention to strike on Monday, March 10th. I want to introduce Greg Richardson, who is our Deputy General Manager. Spelling of his name is Greg-Richardson. And he's going to make some statements, and then he'll be able to answer your questions.
Thank you, Stacy. So let me first start by saying how disappointed we are with the action taken last night by ATU Local 265 with their communication to our board of their intent to strike. But more importantly, we regret the impact this will have on the tens of thousands of our passengers and customers who rely on our service every day to get to school, to get to work, and to medical appointments. So regarding the negotiations, here's what VTA is working to balance. Number one, we want to provide a fair and competitive wage to our workers. Two, we need to maintain fiscal responsibility for the agency in light of current and projected economic conditions. Our current offer, which is consistent with historical agreements and increases for ATU, is a 9.3% wage increase over a 3-year period, which keeps our operators as the second highest paid in the region and the 5th highest paid in the nation. Although this offer comes with some fiscal challenges, we commit to making this work with no decrease in current service levels. ATU's demand is for a 19.1% increase over 3 years. The reality, with a wage increase at this level, or anything close to it, would be service cuts throughout our system and the likely elimination of positions across VTA. This is not a direction that we are willing to go. We will not cut service to accommodate unreasonable demands. We don't have the chart. So one of the issues that we've got is over the next 3 years, our projected revenues from sales tax are about 0.2% in fiscal year 26, 1.7% in fiscal 27, and 2.2% in fiscal year 28. As we're in fiscal year 25 right now, we're already seeing and expect a 4% decrease year over year, and these are all year over year numbers. So the ability for us to accommodate a 3% increase on average over that 3-year period from 26 to 28 is reasonable. An increase at 6% is just not attainable. So here's what I would offer as the most important items for you today. Number one, VTA is offering a competitive wage increase that keeps our operators as some of the highest paid not only in the region but also the nation. VTA will not cut service to accommodate unreasonable demands. And VTA is wanting to work with ATU to find a solution that works best for you, our customers, our employees and operators, and this agency as a whole. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any talks scheduled for over the weekend to maybe avert the strike on Monday? And if not, and the strike happens, your plans for bus service or any kind of service if the strike is on?
So right now there is nothing scheduled, but as I've said to other people, we are always open to having discussions with ATU to find that solution that again meets those the needs that we have from both the customer, their operators, and their employees as well as VTA. So we're open to those conversations. As it relates to service, right now the expectation is that if there is a strike on Monday, there will be no light rail service and there will be no bus service. We'll evaluate that as time goes on, depending on the duration of the strike.
Follow up: has there been a previous strike in VTA's history where you had to shut down the whole system?
There has not been a strike in the 30-year history of VTA.
Greg, Joseph Gio with KQED. Thanks for the time. I just want to ask a question from the union's perspective. Some things we've heard from the President Raj saying are that they believe the agency hasn't been negotiating in good faith and at the very least has been wasting time. And the reason they said that is because there was a 1% year over increase for 3 years, a total 3% raise offered to the union for a series of months in the opening of the negotiations until very recently, till last month. So I guess the question is, why wait so long to come up to 9% in a 4 to 5 month period? And do you think that's what stirred some doubt in the union side that there may be more on the table that they'd be leaving if they were not to push for more?
I mean, I'll say this, that I think negotiations themselves take a long time, and so this has been a long process. I think where we are today right now is we have an offer on the table that we think is fair, 9%. And the 1% number you're referring to is just that single year, but it was a starting point. But we are today, after all of this time, at a point where we believe a 9%, in fact, compounded amount 9.3%, is the fair number to go with. And so that's where we are today, and that's what we think needs to be evaluated.
Sorry, go ahead if you have a follow-up.
Can you address the arbitration issue? Something else we've heard from the union is that, the agency is kind of possibly leaving behind years and maybe even decades of past practice with certain cases where it doesn't really want to go to arbitration, and they want to try to get this codified, as it seems. Haven't heard much comment from VTA on this yet, and it seems to be a sticking point.
Yeah, so we have not and never have brought forward any change that we want to make to the arbitration process within the CBA. That has never been a conversation from our side. The issue that exists is ATU is wanting to make a change to the language that effectively eliminates what has been a long-standing, and when I say long-standing, about 50 years, of two exceptions that exist within the CBA. One is related to those folks who are on probationary period, and again, that's just the initial period in which they come on as employees, and the duration in which the time is allowed for an arbitration to come forward. The language they've asked for effectively eliminates those two exceptions, and honestly, I don't think they want that to occur. But the language they've asked for makes that happen, and we just can't do that. We have offered to have conversations, and we met with them. In fact, it was referenced last night in the board meeting. We were meeting with them yesterday to figure out what is a solution that gets us to both parties can agree to a process that if we need to codify with the agreement, we're willing to do that. But we simply cannot accept the language right now that basically says an arbitrator can arbitrate the arbitrability. I mean, it's just, we can't allow for that to happen because then you eliminate those two exceptions that neither party wants to have happen.
Why do you think there is such a gap between your 9.3, I think you said, and their 19.1? Such a difference. You called their number unreasonable. Why do you think they're coming up with it?
I don't know. I wish I could give you an answer as to where they're coming with that. I think my expectation would be most people who would see where we are today as an economy, where people are within jobs, and they see increases that are being brought forward like that, I would expect that they are also questioning how someone could be asking for an amount of that level at this time. So I'm challenged by it. Again, I come back to, I think the wage offer that we've put forward is fair, it's consistent, and it still maintains the high level of pay that our operators have received, especially within the region and also within the nation.
Is your wage offer comparable to other transit agencies, whether in the Bay Area, around the country, when you look at what,
Yeah.
when you compare to other transit?
Sure, interesting question. So let's keep in mind that we're already at that level where our operators are some of the highest paid. So very recently we had a class and comp study that was done that allowed for the proper level setting, not only for operators, but across all of ATU. And so the wage increase for all employees was a big issue for us when we went forward with our budget in 23-24, or the process for the 24-25 budget, to make sure that we got our employees fairly compensated, not only at ATU, but across all of VTA. So we're already at a level that is higher than most of our sister agencies. So if they're making increases that get closer to us as a percentage, they're going to be a little bit higher. We're not looking to match those percentages. We're looking to make sure that we maintain fair wages across the board and that they stay and not only competitive, but still at that high level of second highest in the region.
Greg, are you worried about the impact of this action by ATU on SEIU, which has also, been months without a new contract renewal and their past expiry there as well, and expressing disappointment at the board meeting last night as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a separate negotiation. I think it's something that you're always going to be concerned about how others can perceive and see the actions that are taken. I have a tremendous amount of faith, not only in our negotiating team, but also with SEIU, that we can come to an agreement with them. Again, fair wage, that's competitive across the board for them that they can accept.
Not asking you to speak for SEIU, but do you have concerns that this could transpire the same way with them, or are you saying that confidence means you believe there probably wouldn't get to a point like this with SEIU?
I don't think I can speak for them. My hope is that we don't get to this situation with them as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about ridership? It's been some talk that it's on the upswing since the pandemic, and probably comes at a bad time.
Yeah, I mean, again, the numbers are one thing. Do we want to keep the ridership going? Of course. I mean, the momentum that VTA has gained over the last 18 to 24 months has been dramatic. Receiving the APTO award for best operator for 2024 just shows all of the work that's been done as an agency. So losing ridership, we don't like to see, but it's more important about the impact it's going to have on those riders. We just simply do not like the fact that our riders are not going to have the service they need, and that's where our number one concern is going to be.
How many people, is there a number of affected, if all those services aren't running?
It'll be over 100,000 a day, each day.
Starting Monday?
Again, if the strike occurs on Monday, then should all those services be eliminated, then yes. I mean, there will not be any service available to those who rely on that service on a daily basis. I do want to clarify one thing. One service that is available will be paratransit. Our paratransit service, which does provide transportation to and from medical appointments and things of that nature, that will still continue. But it's not something that can be augmented and increase any ridership for any of the other people.
Great, I think you may have already addressed this in the beginning, but you're saying no service. Is there any kind of plans for like so-called skeleton or emergency type of service or anything like that you guys are looking into?
We are looking at some contingency plans. Again, it's trying to evaluate where again, if there is a strike, what's going on with it as we proceed through the first few days of it. Again, we want to identify a service that can be reliable and that we can provide with some certainty to those who will be receiving it. The concern on the front end would be that, if we try to do, to your point, a skeletal service, even that would be a point where service would be unreliable and people would be just as frustrated anyway. So we want to figure out the right plans for that, bring in whoever we need to provide the services, and make sure that that's happening.
Your advice to your riders on this Friday before the weekend, planning for Monday, what would you tell them?
If they could, if they have friends that are within the union to help them come to the table and figure out a solution, I'd love to say that I have a solution for them. I think for right now, they've got to do their best to figure out how they get from point A to point B, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we get through this process as fast as we can so that we can get the service back on the street. But right now, it's a challenge that it's hard to address.
It's now Friday. Are there meetings through the weekend? Are there discussions through the weekend? Or?
Well, again, nothing right now is scheduled. I think based on sort of the communication that's provided last night by the union to the board, we have always maintained that we are open to having those conversations with them to find a solution. We have not received anything in response to that or any indication that there's going to be conversations. But again, do I think there might be conversations over the weekend? Very possibly. I wouldn't be surprised by that, but right now there is nothing scheduled.
Sorry if you already answered this, but has there been any effort besides the media to let the riders know about this?
Yes. So when we first sort of got word that a potential strike was there, we started communicating to as many outlets as we could, specifically to passengers, schools, cities, whoever we could, to let them know that the possibility existed for a strike and a disruption to service, and for them to start planning accordingly as best they could. Again, not many options might exist for some folks, but at least it let them know to figure out if there is another solution for them during a strike.
To follow up on that, do you think that effort has been successful? Because I was just at a few bus stops and they have no idea that this is going on.
Trying to communicate to everybody within Santa Clara County is difficult, and so we have tried to use every possible medium that is available to us to try to get that message out. Signs will be up on bus stops and our light rail stations to ensure that people understand, but it's not an easy task, and so we're trying to get to everybody we can.
Thank you. Greg, I don't know if you you want to attempt this, but just given that, the 100,000 figure, can you speak to the actual day-to-day impact that, like we're talking about here, I think getting at here with this question was just what happens if people arrive tomorrow, whether they know or not, or they have to make alternative plans across the county, 100,000 people or so every day, now needing to find alternative transport. What does that mean?
Again, it's going to be, I'll call it it's an unfortunate reality. I mean, if those who do not know that this is happening or are aware of it, as they come to that bus stop, there should be signs that let them know what is happening, and that for them to then start making alternate plans to get to their destinations. We can't be at every stop and have somebody there to sort of communicate it to them, but the best we can do is try to put those communications out as effectively as possible to let them know.
I guess my question was about what kind of impact does this have on people's lives, is what I was saying.
In many cases, it's going to be dramatic. I mean, these are folks who are trying to get to their job, and if they're not aware of it and they're having to clock in, clock out, I mean, this is going to be something that could impact them dramatically. And it's not something that we want to see. It's not something that we would have chosen. And again, it goes back to it's a decision that I think has been made by ATU. And I hope the public sees that is kind of the decision that's been made. And again, given where we are from an offer perspective and everything on the table, I get the sense that most people will realize what we have provided is fair, and that the opportunity really for them to go on the strike was their choice.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.